You got your test results back, and you're staring at a bunch of numbers thinking, is this good? Is this bad? What does it even mean? And here's the scary part. You could have results that your doctor calls normal, but that are actually early warning signs of insulin resistance, inflammation, or metabolic dysfunction. I've seen this time and time again. Fasting insulin is creeping up, CRP is elevated, and no one catches it because blood sugar looks normal. But once you know what to look for, this changes everything. So today I'm going to show you how to read your labs like a pro, what markers really matter, what ranges to aim for, and what to do if something is off. I'm Kait, a nutritionist who specializes in insulin resistance and blood sugar, and one of the first things I do with clients is help them to understand their blood work, because it tells us more than any symptom ever could. Before we jump into the actual markers, let's talk about why this actually matters. Because here's the thing, most people wait until something feels off before they start paying attention to their health. But by the time symptoms show up, like weight gain that won't budge, cravings, fatigue, mood swings, skin tags, your labs have been off for months, sometimes even years. And the most frustrating part? You might have blood work that's done already, but been told everything looks normal. But what most people don't realize is there's a huge difference between what's normal and what's optimal. Normal just means you fall within the average range for the population. But let's be honest, the average person right now is on track for prediabetes or already there. So we're not aiming for average, we're aiming for healthy. Take fasting insulin, for example. Normal lab ranges go up to 24, but research shows that anything above 8 can signal early insulin resistance. And optimal is actually somewhere between 2 to 5. Same goes for inflammation markers like CRP and triglycerides. You don't have to wait until you hit a disease state. You can catch it before it becomes a problem, if you know what to look for. And that's what this video is all about, because I want to help you to understand your labs so you're not just reacting, but taking control. The earlier you can make changes, the better, because you can take advantage of your body still working with you and not against you. All right, so let's get into the key markers you need to look at and what they mean for inflammation, for blood sugar, and overall metabolic health. If you only take one thing from this video, it's that fasting insulin is one of the most important but overlooked blood tests you can get. Insulin is the hormone that tells your body to store sugar. And when your cells stop listening to it, that's when insulin resistance begins. But here's the kicker. Your blood sugar can look normal, but your insulin can be elevated. Because to keep your blood sugar at a healthy level as you're becoming insulin resistant, more and more insulin is needed. Here's what to look out for. An optimal range is between 2 to 5. Early signs of insulin resistance are considered to be anything over 8. And while normal lab ranges might say that up to 24 is fine, this is way too generous. But what does high insulin actually tell you? It means your body is working harder than it should to maintain normal blood sugar. It's a silent signal that metabolic stress is building. Next up, we're going to talk about fasting glucose and HbA1c. These are some of the most commonly tested markers, and they're useful. However, on their own, they can be misleading. Fasting glucose is a snapshot of your blood sugar at one moment in time. HbA1c is your 3-month average. So you could have a fasting glucose of 90 milligrams per deciliter and an A1C of 5.5 and still be experiencing blood sugar roller coasters daily, especially after meals. Ideally, you want your fasting glucose to be 75 to 85 milligrams per deciliter, and you want your HbA1c to be under 5.3. But like I said, looking at your fasting glucose and A1C alone can be misleading because your blood sugar can be within a normal range, but your insulin is higher to manage it. And that's when this next test is particularly helpful. And I'm talking about HOMA-IR. This is where you get the full picture. HOMA-IR is a calculation that uses fasting insulin and fasting glucose to estimate how insulin resistant your body is. Basically, it's seeing how much insulin is needed to keep your blood sugar where it is. Ideally, you want both your fasting blood sugar and your fasting insulin to be low. If both are high, that's not ideal. That means insulin resistance, and that can even mean prediabetes or type 2 diabetes. But even if your blood sugar is low and your insulin is high, as I've said a few times, this means early insulin resistance. An ideal HOMA-IR score is under 1.0, but under 1.5 is still considered good. Anything over 2 signifies insulin resistance. So for example, if your fasting glucose is 95 and your fasting insulin is 11, then your HOMA-IR score is going to be 2.6. And that's a red flag, even though both biomarkers technically fall under the normal range. This is one of the earliest detection tools we have for insulin resistance. and it's very easy to calculate. Next up, let's talk about cholesterol. And no, I'm not talking about LDL. The most important biomarkers when it comes to your cholesterol are triglycerides and HDL. The ratio between the two gives you insight into insulin resistance and fat metabolism. Ideally, you want your triglycerides to be under 100 milligrams per deciliter and your HDL to be above 50. When you take your triglycerides and you divide it by your HDL, a ratio under 2 is ideal. High triglycerides often come from a diet high in sugar and carbohydrates, not fat. And this is a key marker for metabolic health. Next, let's talk about one of the most important markers when it comes to inflammation, hs-CRP, or high sensitivity C-reactive protein. And this matters because inflammation makes insulin resistance worse. It can also signal an early disease risk. Ideally, you want this to be under 1 milligram per liter. Between 1 and 3 signifies moderate inflammation, and over 3 means you're highly inflamed. High CRP doesn't tell you what's inflamed, but it does tell you that something's off. If it's high, it's time to dig deeper into your diet, your sleep, your stress, your lifestyle, and figure out what the cause is. Next, let's talk about ALT. This liver enzyme helps to spot early signs of fatting liver, which is strongly linked to insulin resistance, even in people who don't drink alcohol. Under 20 is ideal for women and under 30 for men. A lot of people nowadays have an ALT of 40 plus, but aren't aware that it's a problem. However, it's a sign that there's fat building up in your liver, which is something we absolutely want to avoid before it's too late. Now, if you're looking at these markers and thinking, my doctor never told me any of this, you're not alone. Fasting insulin is something that absolutely should be tested routinely, but isn't. And a lot of doctors, even when asked, are hesitant to run it because sometimes it's not covered by insurance. Now, for some reason, if you ask for a HOMA-IR test, which does include fasting insulin, doctors can be a little bit more open to it. But if you're still struggling to get your doctor to test your fasting insulin, your HOMA-IR, or anything else, then I highly recommend So Health's Weight Biology Kit. This is an at-home kit that tests key biomarkers of metabolic health, a lot of which we spoke about in today's video. And yes, that includes your fasting insulin and HOMA-IR. It's simple. You do the test from home, which requires just a finger prick of blood. You send it in, and your results are reviewed by a licensed physician. So you're not left trying to interpret random numbers on your own. You get clear and real guidance. And your results are returned to you within days. Your report includes next steps you can take. Whether you're already on a blood sugar or insulin resistance reversing journey, or you're just getting started, this is an amazing tool. To get the kit for yourself, head to healthcoachkait.com/getsowell. I'll put that link in the description box down below too. And you can use code KAIT10 at checkout to save 10% off your order. It's available in the United States only. Now let's talk about how to spot some patterns in your results, even if everything, again, looks normal. And this is for people who are finding that all of their numbers are falling within range, but they still feel like something's off with their health. This is where spotting early patterns becomes critical. Instead of looking at each number in isolation, look at how they work together. Is your fasting glucose creeping up towards 100? Is your insulin above 8? Is your HOMA-IR over 1.5? Is your triglyceride to HDL ratio closer to 3 than to 1? None of these might get flagged, but together they tell a story. And more often than not, the story is you have insulin resistance developing. Now, if one or more of the markers that we've spoken about in today's video is off, don't panic. It just means you have a starting point. You have a clear target and time to fix it before it progresses. So here's what I recommend. First off, you're gonna wanna make lifestyle changes. And this doesn't mean a huge overhaul. We wanna focus on small habit changes that we can stick to over time. Things like eating more protein, lowering our sugar intake, taking walks after meals, and making sure we get at least 7 hours of sleep every single night. Make these small changes and then test again in 8 to 12 weeks. Between tests, track how you feel. Your energy, your hunger, your cravings, your mental clarity. And if you're using So Health's Weight Biology Kit, it's super easy to compare your results. It's the best way to see if what you're doing is working or not. Okay, I know I've thrown a lot at you in today's video, so I'm quickly gonna recap the tests we spoke about and the ranges to aim for. First off was fasting insulin. You want to aim for between 2 to 5. Next up is fasting glucose. Between 75 to 85 milligrams per deciliter is ideal. HbA1c, you want to be under 5.3. HOMA-IR, under 1.5 is great, but under 1.0 is ideal. Your triglyceride to HDL ratio should be under 2. Your hs-CRP should be under 1. And your ALT under 20. Remember, just because your labs look normal doesn't mean it's optimal and that you're healthy. Be your own advocate for your health, even if it feels like your doctor is working against you. Now, let me know in the comments down below because I'm curious. Have you ever had your fasting insulin or your HOMA-IR tested? It's crazy to me how many people have never had this test run. Let me know down below. And before you go, don't forget to check out So Well Health. I'll put that link in the description box down below as well. Thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.